You got to be kidding me, folks. It's Tuesday. Coach Rogers and I are chilling, socially distanced in the gym here. Hawaiian themed. That's why I have this on. Somebody gave it to me, obviously. But Coach Rogers, what do we got for him today, sir?
Today, since baseball is starting the World Series first game today, we're going to talk a little bit about the steroid era of baseball. Your thoughts on the steroid era of baseball. I'm going to let Coach Frazier open up with his opening statements.
Steroid era of baseball. I grew up watching these guys, Coach Rogers, watching these players like your Barry Bonds, your Roger Clemens. As a baseball fan, as a child, I had a Barry Bonds poster when he played for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And he wasn't a power hitter, and he was really small, but he led the league in doubles and stolen bases and all this other stuff. But later on in his career, his power seemed to go up. But, you know, I have thoughts about that. I think Barry Bonds is one of, if not the greatest hitter in baseball history, and I don't think it has much to do with the steroids, in my opinion.
Do you believe he should be in the Hall of Fame?
Absolutely. Barry Bonds should be a Hall of Famer, in my opinion. How about you?
To go back and forth with this, steroids, I don't believe, make a person a hitter or make a person a better athlete. I think they give them an advantage over someone that's not taking steroids. I think the problem is it's not a fair playing field. So if you're looking for a fair playing field, you're looking for what records should be compared. I don't think you compare steroid using people against non-steroid using people. I mean, in weight training, in bodybuilding, they actually have two categories of bodybuilding. You know, performance enhancing drugged bodybuilding and clean bodybuilding. They actually have two. You know, the people that are taking your steroids and your performance enhancing drugs compete in one category. Another category is the clean, unclean version or clean version. So again, I think you're comparing apples to oranges when you're comparing stats of someone that's taking steroids and someone that's not. Not so much the power, but more so the ability to practice longer than someone else.
Well, there's always been this debate about the steroid era as well. Everybody was on steroids. Pitchers, hitters, they all were steroid users. That's why I threw out not just Barry Bonds, but I threw out your Roger Clemens. And the reason why I was saying that, there's always the debate in sports about things, but baseball especially, there's the debate about the stealing of the signals. There's debate whether the ball is juiced. There's always this debate. In my opinion, all of those are things a part of the game. I mean, even in the smallest levels of baseball, people are stealing signals. And to me, if you can hit a baseball, the steroids may or may not help you. It's just so much of a debate because Roger Clemens throwing to Barry Bonds, he's on steroids too. How do you differentiate between the two, Coach?
The fact of the matter is, it's not. I think your argument is invalid. And the reason your argument is invalid is because, again, stealing signs is a part of baseball. But using technology or using other means that is not allowed is the reason you can't. There's nothing in the rules that says you can't steal someone's signs by sitting in the dugout and trying to figure them out by watching them, even writing stuff down on a piece of paper. But when you're taking videos and watching videos and going back, that's completely different because that's actually like using performance-enhancing drugs. There's nothing that says you can't practice 14 hours a day, 15 hours a day. But if your body physically can't do it, so you need something else that's illegal to use it, there's your argument right there. It doesn't matter. I don't think we can say that everyone uses steroids because I don't think everybody uses steroids.
Well, going back to this point, though, the video part, a lot of people supposedly use the videos as well, but the Astros are the team that got caught. So the Astros get caught. I'm going to make my point with this. The Astros got caught, and they so-called did it in the season. The Astros still did great this year without the stuff, without using the same tactics. So the point I'm making is, again, here comes my real end point. Barry Bonds was a great hitter before the steroids, too. What did it do to make a difference? As a baseball person, me not being one, but being a fan as a child, growing up collecting baseball cards, Barry Bonds was a great hitter with or without the steroids.
Barry Bonds was a great hitter. I don't know his stats. I don't have his stats right here. I'd be more than happy to pull up his stats, but I don't think with Barry Bonds, I'm not sure Barry Bonds was a Hall of Famer prior to hitting all those home runs.
I totally disagree with that. I think Barry Bonds was definitely a Hall of Famer before all the steroids. Now, the steroid era player that was not a Hall of Famer before then, in my opinion, Sammy Sosa was not a Hall of Fame stat level. McGuire and Bonds, though, yeah, I think they may have been on the level.
You're going to say McGuire? McGuire is would have been a Hall of Famer for his power only. For his power only. That's nothing that he's not a great hitter.
He wasn't juicing before, and he was hitting them.
How do you know when he started juicing? How can you tell when
he admitted it? But
how do you trust a cheater?
Exactly. That's the point I'm making about the Astros. So if everybody's doing it and one person gets caught, you know.
But again, everyone's doing that. I don't think everyone's doing it.
How do we know until they get caught? That's the point.
We don't, but then the people do get caught again.
So
have to pay the consequences.
So in that era, if the ball's juiced, the pitcher's juiced, and everything else, it's just a part of the game.
The game could be illegal to do.
Not if they don't get caught. That's kind of what it's saying. Because the old saying, and I got it from you, if you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Yeah, but the part of the thing is there's nothing illegal until you get caught. Speeding's not illegal until you get caught. Anything you do is not illegal until you get caught. Morally, it's illegal. But again, in the eyes of the law, if you're speeding down the highway and there's no police around, you've broken the law, but it's not illegal, and you're not going to have consequences for it. If you get caught, okay, you pay a ticket, you go to court, whatever you do.
Well,
same difference with the people. Barry Bonds got caught, should not be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, I think we both agree. This is something we're both very similar about. I find myself looking over in your direction instead of at the camera. I need to stay on the camera and say, folks. But, folks, Coach Rogers and I he'll agree with me on this. We both would have a hard time cheating and going to sleep at night. We're the type of people where we both morally, we just don't think that way. We both think do it the right way, move forward. The cheating thing, I don't think I could get away with it myself. If I stole a sign in a baseball game, I'd be like, oh, my God, I stole a sign. Oh, God, am I supposed to do that? Whereas during the run of a basketball game or watching the film, I'm going to use basketball as an example, I can tell you what the other team's calling me very easily. Man, I learned it through film and learned it through some hard work and everything else. But cutting the corners, baseball, it's just hard to tell if it really takes away from the talent of the player. Like Mike Trout during that era, would he have taken steroids?
Again, I can't speak for Mike Trout. I can't speak for
Griffey didn't.
There are a lot of players that did. I mean, there are a lot of players that didn't. Think about all the players. Think about Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron, they didn't even have steroids back then, or they didn't think about using steroids back then as far as performance-enhancing drugs. Back in the day, all these records that these guys that are using performance-enhancing drugs, records that are being broken, played in the non-steroid, non-even thought about steroid era. Babe Ruth, for that matter. I mean, steroids probably weren't even invented back then. But again, you're breaking these guys' records who made these records without steroids. So how can you take performance-enhancing drugs and, and again, now don't get me wrong, okay? If you make them legal, it's fine. The wood bat, okay? The wood bat has been the same wood bat. Obviously, it's made better now, but the wood bat Babe Ruth used. If they ever go to aluminum or composite bats or these new bats that they're using in college, if they did that, you have to break the Major League Baseball record down to before wood bat, after wood bat.
Yes.
So if you want to make steroids legal, make them legal. And say, okay, these are your records prior to steroid use. These are your records after steroid use. But again, I don't think you compare apples and oranges because they're not the same. They're just not.
Well, I look at it in two different aspects. Number one, the steroids gave athletes, especially pitchers, a longevity of excellence. Like Roger Clemens had a longevity where his body did not wear down. Well into the things. People, you don't realize Roger Clemens pitched in the 2000s, and he was a 1980s pitcher. I mean, that's a long time to be on top. But the point that I'm going to make to you, Coach Rogers, is I remember growing up in my era, You and I have a little bit of an age difference, not much, but a little bit. Here's what I think the steroid era did to baseball more than records. I think it changed the way the game is played, and the modern players still try to do and break records from the steroid times. But I look back at a player like a George Brett or a Wade Boggs and a Mike Schmidt, and I list those three players because of this reason. George Brett is one of the last people to chase hitting 400. He chased hitting 400. Wade Boggs chased hitting 400. Wade Boggs was a slap hitter, third baseman that got base hits. Mike Schmidt was a power hitter from that era who hit 35 to 40 home runs a year. And that was power back then. That was a powerful hitter. But it's changed where people used to bat 370 and 365, and the batting averages have gone down to where batting average just really isn't a thing anymore comparative. So where that era in the early 80s where people were hitting for that type of average. Do you think the steroid era changed that?
Steroid era changed because I don't know, because I think you still have a batting king every year. You still have someone hitting 370, 360 every year that wins the batting title. I still think, again, I think what that does is it, again, made the playing field equal. I mean, home runs were not, 40 home runs in a year was ridiculous. That's what people would, it was base hits. It was not, it was, it wasn't hitting 70 home runs in a season. That's not what it was. Again, I go back to the averages of these guys. You talked about, you talk about hitters. I hate to say it, and you talk about hitters. You named George Brett, Wade Boggs, Tony Gwynn.
Gwynn was good.
You talk about all these, Rod Carew. You talk about all these hitters that hit for high averages. The greatest hitters of all time. You don't talk about Barry Bonds in that list. Barry Bonds is not in that list.
No.
The greatest hitters of all time, Barry Bonds is not the 10th thing. If you take home runs out of it, Barry Bonds is not even in the top 25 hitters of all time. Ted Williams, go all the way back as far as you want.
Splendid Splinter is, yeah.
I think Barry Bonds, yes, he was a good hitter. He was a better power hitter than what I feel like his home runs came because of the steroids. And again, the word to me, one-trick pony.
Well,
that's what comes to me. He can hit the long ball.
Before the steroid era, though, before Bonds juiced it, though, Rogers, he was leading the league, and he's one of the first members of the 40 for 40, 30 for 30, where you hit 30 doubles, 40 home runs, 40 doubles. I mean, he had some really, really interesting statistics.
I don't think he was in the top 25. If you listed the top 25 hitters of all time, he's in that list. And next show, folks, I don't care if we're talking about surfing. Next show, I'm looking up these stats, and I will bring it to you live. Barry Bonds stats prior to this, and that will be on tomorrow's show. Check in tomorrow, because tomorrow I will bring these stats and prove that Barry Bonds is not a Hall of Famer without the home runs.
Okay, folks, I got a question for Rogers, and I'll answer mine after he gets his. Who's your favorite hitter of all time?
There's a million hitters. Ken Griffey Jr. probably. Ken Griffey Jr.
Griffey, in my opinion, and this is, to me, Griffey's the greatest all-around baseball player ever, in my opinion. Defense, hitting, the whole nine. I would have to venture to say he's my favorite hitter in baseball, just because every time he went to the plate, you just enjoyed it, and it was exciting. I don't know if there's another player in the modern era that if you were flipping the television and you weren't a baseball fan and you heard the name now batting Ken Griffey, you're stopping and you're going to watch.
I think Mike Trout fits that bill.
You think Trout does?
Mike Trout fits that bill. Mike Trout, to me, Mike Trout is an old school player playing this day and age. He has all the tools that Ken Griffey Jr. did. Ken Griffey Jr. just made it look easy. Ken Griffey Jr., everything Ken Griffey Jr. did was smooth, and everything Ken Griffey did was just like he was born to do it. Mike Trout looks like an old school baseball player. Mike Trout looks like he's trying to be good. Mike Trout looks like he's trying hard. He's your Pete Rose diving head first in the bases. You know, he's not your flashy kind of guy. He's old school baseball. I like Mike Trout as well. I think Mike Trout fits the bill Ken Griffey Jr. did.
Most of the older crowd of their huge baseball fans, like my dad, like Pop compares him to Mantle. He compares him to Mickey Mantle. So, but that's a totally another debate, folks. As you can tell, Coach Rogers got worked up about Barry Bonds. It's always a good day. Always a good day when Rogers gets worked up. But as the World Series comes and as we start talking about baseball, Coach Rogers has a lot of baseball knowledge. I have a lot of baseball card knowledge. So we're gonna I know some stats. I don't know how much the stuff goes, but in the same point in time, folks, you got anything else for these people?
Check in tomorrow for Barry Bonds stats. I will win 2 battles tomorrow. Whatever we're talking about, and this one today.
Folks, he gets a goose egg. Y'all have a good day.